Hit Factory had 2 Oxford consoles, and a good friend of mine, Mick Gazowski, had one. And at the time, of course, I was, as I always am, looking for what is going to be at the front of technology. And I thought the Oxford console was a really amazing piece of equipment. So as soon as the Oxford plugs came out, I was an early adopter, and they sound great. The earliest Sonnox plugins that I used were the EQ. The Oxford EQ was something that I started using immediately. And I used it, as I said, because I like to do subtractive equalization. And I like a parametric EQ for that purpose. You gain a trust, basically, is how it works for all manufacturers. All of us who make records do the same thing. When we get a trust with the manufacturer, we'll try all of their product line. Because I had a history with Oxford consoles, I immediately had a trust in the Oxford EQ. When the Reverb came out, there weren't that many Reverbs at the time in the box, and I wasn't really able to get any of them to sound the way my outboard reverbs did. I really used a lot of Lexicon reverbs at the time. So I really anticipated when the Oxford Reverb was going to come out. And I remember I was working on a couple different things, but one in particular was a Sergio Mendes record that will.i.am had produced. And we were doing a lot of it in my hybrid. It was brand new at the time, my hybrid setup. It must have been 05 or something like that. And the Sergio Mendes record was one that I got a Grammy for. But I remember needing more reverbs. And in the room we were in, at the time I had 2 rooms. I had an old Neve sidecar, much like this one here, and a Avid controller. But on this particular project, we did a lot of our work in the box, and it was my first foray into that, and it worked out really well. It came out great, and I used the reverb primarily for that record, and I still use it. Actually, I use it differently now. I quite often use it, again, because of that trust thing with a manufacturer. It's rare that I'll take a reverb and put it over a guitar track or put it, directly on a track, because in my mind I'm thinking, oh, that's going to degrade the sound or whatever it is. But with the Sonnox, I actually am confident enough to put it right on a track and then just mix in, using the mix function, how much reverb I want to be with it. And I think for things like guitars and even occasionally snares, it works out great, because those are instruments that quite often are recorded with a reverb, whether it's from an amplifier or from a pedal. It's quite often you get a guitar with reverb on it. So that mentality allows me to feel confident enough to put it right on the track. I think the difference in the Oxford Reverb is a lot of it has to do with the fact that I'm able to manipulate it to sound the way that I want. I like that I can manipulate EQ-wise what the Oxford Reverb does, so I can change texturally what it's doing. I can change what I believe, the size of the walls in the room, what those walls and floors are made of, those kinds of things. I like to be able to manipulate that, because in my mind that's how it works. I'm thinking of stone, or I'm thinking of cement, or I'm thinking of a brick wall, or I'm thinking of, a carpet, or I'm thinking of, high ceiling, low ceiling, those sorts of things. So in my mind, that's how I perceive the room or the space that I'm creating for that instrument, and I'm able to do that and manipulate that quite easily with the Oxford. With, say, the Reverb from Avid. I have much less control over those functions. It has a sound that I like for certain things, but I don't really manipulate it that much once I put it on. I might change the reverb time or the pre-delay or you know, what their preset is. But generally, there's not much manipulation there, whereas the Oxford, I can use it in a variety of settings because I can manipulate it quite a lot. You know, I'm a tweaker. A lot of guys don't want to tweak. Will.i.am came in the other day and he goes, "I love Reverb, man, don't you? It's just really easy. You put it on and it works." And he's right. He makes great records, and he doesn't like to tweak reverbs. He likes to tweak other things, but he doesn't want to tweak reverbs. So he uses it all the time. So it varies. I like to tweak reverbs because in my head I'm thinking, again, about what that room looks like, how many people are in it, and those kinds of things. And the Oxford allows me to do that. I'm creating something that's for delivery, ultimately. For me to be able to give my clients something that is the best quality for that format is really what it's all about.